This episode brought to you by Anchor FM, the easiest way to make a podcast. Anchor gives you everything you need for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer to make a podcast. Creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast out so it sounds great. They'll even distribute the podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Download the Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. Anchor, the best way to make your podcast.
Yeah, this is the first episode. We have to acknowledge the bump music. The bump music's free, and we're in beta. It's pretty cool. Welcome into Fundraise Now. I'm Alex Simon. This is episode 3. My next guest is Ashley Budd, digital strategist and designer at Higher Ed Live and the director of digital marketing at Cornell University, where she has spent the last 6 years. Ashley is a thought leader in online fundraising and digital strategy in and outside higher education. She talks about the rebirth of your website as the North Star for truth in the post-truth world. She also talks about telling development offices to not be afraid to have donors designate their gift as a way to get them on the donor rolls. And she talks about social media as a platform and a place to tell stories rather than just a place to distribute information.
Of digital media begin?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Well, I attended Rochester Institute of Technology as an undergrad.
Right.
And actually went there for an art degree. I was a painting major. But I found myself surrounded by technology and people who were studying all sorts of cutting edge technologies. So I was really engrossed in a lot of what was new for my undergraduate years. And after I graduated college, I was not ready to be a starving artist. So I took a position in the admissions office at RIT, which just happened to be the right place at the right time, where a lot of exciting digital things were happening. Around 2007 was the time that Facebook was opening its doors to the public, and we started thinking about how we could use email and social media to reach out to prospective students. So that's where things started rolling.
And your first love of the art and utilizing that, kind of creative side and messaging out to students who were, 17, 18, 19 years old, looking to find a college to go to and a big investment.
Well, yeah, I guess the way that I was approaching the work was looking at what had worked for so long traditionally, and at the time in enrollment, the student-led campus tours were like the highest converter of student enrollment. That was one of the big decision makers. If you could get someone onto campus and get that face-to-face interaction with a counselor or with another current student, that was really important in the cycle. So what I tried to do was scale that as the Institute was trying to bring in students from farther away. It had been pretty much like a regional university, and they were trying to go more national and international. So we were using digital to try to scale that experience. And so we started putting our tour guides on YouTube, and started doing live chats with them, and started using all of these new digital tools to help us simulate that same experience that a student would get if they were physically on campus.
And you can start to see that in some tangible results as far as the admissions side goes, as far as the international students and the quality of students that you were getting?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I try to use that same strategy now when I'm thinking about what really has always worked for our businesses in the traditional sense, and what new tools are available that would help us scale that really personal. When you think about fundraising, it's that highly personal major gift officer to major donor relationship that's built over the course of years. You know, like, what's the secret sauce in that relationship, and is there any way that we can scale that for a larger broad-based audience using digital tools?
So how do you personalize that? How do you personalize relationships? Because I think there's still a lot of, you know, nonprofits out there and organizations out there that look at like social media as just a way to like distribute like content of like what's going on here, and just, you know, you almost want to kind of, it's like something that you want to check off the box rather than like really create kind of a personal message to a targeted audience. So what are some ways
personalization is really hard. It's hard to create a personal experience no matter what. It's gonna take some work. So I think people that use online tools for communication can kind of see right through what is personal and what's not. Just putting my name in a subject line of an email doesn't make me think that someone actually wrote that to me personally.
Right.
I know that there's technology that just inserts my name from a database. And that's the same that you get in other forms of communication too. Like, I know when I'm getting that robocall on my cell phone, or I know when a letter shows up in my mailbox that's got handwriting, printed handwriting on there as opposed to actual physical handwriting. So, you know, people can see right through a lot of those kind of gimmicky personalizations. I think when I'm trying to make something personal at scale, I'm really thinking about the messaging that's going to resonate with my whole audience and not turn others away. So trying to be really inclusive in the messaging, not thinking about just a niche part of my audience, and just always trying to strike a really friendly tone rather than an institutional tone or an academic tone that we get so often in higher education. When you use language that is as close to the same language that you use when you speak, it comes across as a more conversational and therefore personal tone when you're online. And that can be a real conflict for people who have worked in communication for a long time as writers, because the craft of writing is different than speaking, public speaking. And I think the way we started using our digital devices, mobile devices are very much linked to speaking. I'm speaking to you on my phone that serves mainly as a computer. We're starting to speak to devices more and more, and so we're really blurring that line between where you would sit down and read something and a two-way conversation that you're going to have over a digital device. So I think a great way to kind of scale personalization is to start with your language and trying to strike that more conversational tone in all of your writing.
I was reading on your website, and I know you've got a few different things that I know you work at Cornell and Higher Ed Live, as well as you have do some personal work as a consultant. But you said, I design online experiences inspired by the real world. That's kind of what you were talking about a little bit, but
yeah, exactly.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah, when I'm approaching a new challenge, I really do try to ground myself in what is happening offline before I go online. So if I'm working with a new client, I'm really trying to understand what they do best. They're usually coming to me because they're having trouble with something that they can't do very well, or, they're tackling something that's foreign or new to them. And so trying to understand what does work, and what works for someone in the real world, usually will work for them online too. It's just being able to then use a kind of translation, the digital language that I have, and the knowledge base of the tool sets that, I have in my toolkit to say, what you're doing here, we can do online, and we can, serve thousands of people rather than just the individuals on an individual basis. So yeah, that's really what I'm talking about is, being inspired by the good work that people are doing face to face.
So how do you push back against, some maybe senior level management that folks, and they're talking like, why are we wasting our time with, social media and digital media when, the base of who gives is really still baby boomers and older, and they're not necessarily online. So what are some ways and tactics like you just continue to be persistent with senior management when they rebut against you?
Yeah, I think I know that is not true, that statement that you made, and if you're someone who's advocating for the use of social media, you probably know that there is value there. Some of the best ways that I've been able to break through to senior leadership who might not understand the value is through anecdotal, small successes, and showing, one or two donors that I know they really respect or would put in that category of this person would never interact with us here, and showing them, an active Twitter account, or showing them the information that someone is posting about themselves on LinkedIn, and making a connection with that person on LinkedIn. One anecdotal story that I tell is about someone who caught our eye on the digital team because she had moved into a C-level position at a huge organization. We kind of saw it over the newswire. This alumnus is now the CMO of a big Fortune 500 company, the first female to be in the role. And we said, like, wow, this is great. What's going on with her? Are we already tracking her? Is she in a prospect pool of ours? And so in the database, we could see that she did have a gift officer assigned to her. And in our workflow, we won't reach out and we won't do any even kind of congratulations over social until we touch base with that gift officer to make sure we're not messing up any surprise thank you or something that we didn't know was happening. So in this case, we touch base with the gift officer. The gift officer says, oh yeah, we know that person does not communicate with us. Cornell is not on their radar. We've, tried emailing and calling them for years and just like radio silence. So do whatever you want to do on the social media thing that you do. And so, we sent a quick congratulatory tweet, connected with her on LinkedIn. She connected back with us within 20 minutes. And so for years, this radio silence has now been broken over a few connections over social media. And over the course of the next couple of months, we started to follow her a little closer, saw that she got a new dog. We were giving some name suggestions, Cornell name suggestions for the puppy. And just kind of started this nice back and forth banter. Found out that she was, did in fact have a daughter who was interested in attending and was heading back to campus to do a campus visit. And over the course of, opened the relationship back up with the gift officer. And over the course of 6 months, we were able to bring her to campus as a speaker for the Cornell Women's Council, and ended up getting a $75,000 commitment from her within a year. So those anecdotal stories, and really what it was, this is a busy CMO, it's marketing, in the marketing sector, too busy to pick up the phone call. You're getting screened. Email is a nightmare. And, you weren't cutting through the noise in email, but a little bit of ego stroking on Twitter in a public space.
Right.
And that, personal connection made through LinkedIn, which is so easy to do, opened up the dialogue. So we met her where she was. And once we were able to, remind her, hey, here we are, we're here to help. How can we help you with this campus visit? Do you want to be more connected to the university? Everything, broke open there. So it's those kinds of stories that we've been telling for years now that go a really long way in helping you make the case to senior leadership that, a little bit of investment in a different communication tool might be the right communication tool for a major donor.
One of the things you and Cornell do so well is crowdfunding, and I know you're part of an integral team that takes on crowdfunding and days of giving that have been, now, almost a staple in every development office.
Yes.
So talk to me just about some tips to make those days successful. And I know a lot goes into it, but just some tips. 2 to 5 tips that make it successful for.
Crowdfunding and giving days follow some similar. There are some similar strategies. I'll start with a giving day because I think that's something that a lot of organizations can pull together probably more effectively than something like crowdfunding that requires you to have a third-party platform to, there are some specific bells and whistles that crowdfunding requires. But a couple of things about either is with any kind of online digital fundraising event, you want to keep the marketing timeline really tight. So if you're going to have a day of giving, or if you're going to launch a month-long crowdfunding project, this is not something that you announce months in advance. Hold that date of that giving day really close to you until 2 weeks before it happens. And you want to do that for a couple of reasons. One reason is you don't want to mess with the regular giving habits of your loyal donors.
Right.
You don't want them to be holding out on making a gift to save it for giving day. And you also want to think about users' digital habits. When you're planning to meet up with friends, you get a Facebook event invite or something pops up in your email. Unless it's something that you need to travel to, if it's an online experience, getting anything more than 2 weeks in advance, you're just going to look at it and totally forget. Because you don't need to plan any travel for a giving day. You really just need to mark your calendar. 2 weeks advance notice is plenty. So hold that, save the date really close, and then use that 2 week window before your event to create a lot of excitement and hype, because in 2 weeks you can do some fun things without annoying people or, just hammering it home too much. The 2-week window has just been perfect for us. So we typically do a save the date. We open giving up in advance for VIPs. So if you have a donor base that contributes loyally or year round or in big dollars, they might see this as an additional ask that's annoying. So what we'll do with our real loyal donors is open up a VIP website for them to make their gift early, and we frame it in a way that they're going to be the ones to spark the momentum for the day, to inspire others to give. Their gifts will show up first thing when it launches, and get others excited. So we're not starting with $0. We're starting with these other gifts. And it also gives them the opportunity to opt out. If giving day is not the way that they want to participate, fine, opt out now. Thank you for everything you do. We won't send you emails about this for the next 2 weeks. So it's a really nice courtesy, a twofold courtesy. Either get out if you're not interested and we won't bug you, or if you want to, show your leadership, make your gift early and help us, start the excitement on that day. So those are two things that have worked really well for us. Creating the buzz over a 2-week time period before the event happens. Yep. And then allowing VIPs to take the day whichever direction they want to.
So like 3-4 years ago, giving days and crowdfunding was kind of all the rage. It was and now it's become like a staple. What are some things that you see, like what's next in terms of digital marketing and digital fundraising? And I'm also curious about like what you're seeing like in the next generation as the millennials are kind of being phased out in terms of at least the young alumni status, and now we're getting more involved with Gen Z.
Okay.
So I was just what are your thoughts on what's next?
Yeah, a couple things looking forward. I think a reinvestment in our websites is still really important. Your website is going to be your home base, your source of truth in a world where truth is bendable on social media, and when things can change really quickly. I think we've been depending a lot on email in philanthropy, and once an email is sent, you can't change the contents of that. So maintaining a lot of your information on your own website where you can keep things up to date is really important. And starting to train our donors to go to our websites as a source of, helpful information, inspiring stories, places where they can make their gifts, and feel really good about making those transactions there. I think a lot of us still have a lot of work to do to make that experience better. So we're investing more time in our websites, also investing more time in our email communication. There's some really interesting things happening with artificial intelligence in our databases and what we can do with email to help make email more personal when you're dealing with really large constituencies like we have. What kind of cues can we get sent to us out of the database? What kind of push notifications can we get out of the database to remind us to send a follow-up email to someone? That can be really helpful for gift officers that are managing large portfolios. So thinking about transactional email and how you do transactional email and not make it feel like a transaction, make it feel more personal. We're thinking a lot about that. As far as the audiences go, I think the millennial generation is really a great one because I'm part of it.
Right.
It's a generation that is very giving, but, is also very skeptical, questions all sorts of institutions. And so we really have to do a good job making the case for our own organizations to why they should give there. I don't think making the case to why give to this group is going to be a hard case. It's why give to the specific organization. So, more work in connecting the dots between what's happening in their lives and how that relates to your own individual organization is going to go a long way. And so an investment in storytelling that's going to help make those connections, I think, will be well worth it. And I think the trend will stay the same with this next generation. And what's worked for millennials that we've seen so far is not being afraid to offer restricted giving as an entry point into being a loyal donor to the organization. I think when we started with crowdfunding, one of the things we were really concerned about was this pathway of very restricted giving. And our institution relies on unrestricted gifts so that we can be flexible with our budgets. And if we're acquiring people through crowdfunding and giving days and to letting them give to very specific funds, how then can we ensure that we're going to have the unrestricted funds in the future that we need? But that's just a challenge you have to work through and a plan that you have to have in place. The crowdfunding and giving days are great acquisition tools, but you have to have a retention plan for that audience that does move them from a very restricted gift, maybe, just giving to their swim team that they were, had this affinity to making the case and doing that cultivation work to say, thank you for supporting the swim team. Maybe the next gift is to the Campus Life Annual Fund and how that bridge, makes sense for them, for that kind of a donor and helping them move, towards the path of just giving restricted funds to the university. So
why is storytelling?
I think it's going to be more of that. What was that?
Why is storytelling so important?
Yeah, I think back to what a major gift officer is so good at, and they're cultivating a relationship over many years, and what they're doing is they're doing a lot of listening to the donor, and then they're doing a lot of pitching back to the donor about what's happening on campus. So it's a lot of stories that are shared back and forth over time that make you feel like you're closer and make you feel like you're connected. And when you're telling those stories back and forth, you're noting, oh yes, when you were on campus, this made sense. And this is what we're doing now that relates back to you and what's happening in your life. And so it's really in that cultivation window, if you think about the traditional fundraising arc, that storytelling is so important in making it feel personal. When we skip that, it feels much more like a transaction that you make online. You're just like a shopping cart that you're checking out at. And when it's a transaction like that, it really doesn't give you that same feel-good sense that you get with philanthropy, that you should get with philanthropy, that you're really giving, and that it connects to you on a more human level. So if you kind of skip the cultivation phase, I don't know that you're going to be able to retain that donor in the same way.
Why do you think philanthropy and fundraising has to be so personal? What is it about it that makes it maybe more personal than just even like if you were to go into a car dealer,
Because you don't need to give your money away.
Right.
Right? You need a car. you don't need to be charitable. Right. You might need to give your family a gift, but you're not obligated. And I think there was a generation that did feel that obligation. You know, the post-World War II generation who were given the GI Bill and did feel like they had an obligation to give back to their alma mater. Those days are gone. You know, the obligation does not exist with these new generations. So it has to be, you know, it has to be a two-way, feel good experience where the donor really does feel like they're going to make a difference, that they're going to change something, with even their small gift, that's going to change something on the campus that they can point to. So transaction just does not fly with philanthropy ever.
Very good. Do you think, let me ask you this question. Do you think like Bitcoin and digital currencies are going to be like more prevalent? Or, I mean, do you guys are a huge university. I don't know if do you have the capability to take donations through some of these cryptocurrencies and things like that?
Capability, yes. Are we accepting? No.
Yeah.
I think if a major donor came to us with a huge wallet and said, can I unload this, we would figure out how to do that. But that scenario hasn't played out yet.
It's not something you're actively advertising.
No. I'm not sure it's where we would invest. I think we're still more interested in how people are. I think more popular exchange now is kind of the Apple Pay, the Venmo kind of quick digital transaction. So making sure we're keeping up to speed with something that's more popular. I think, cryptocurrencies are still way too niche. But we've been thinking a lot about digital identities. I think part of what makes cryptocurrency so interesting is the technology that is built on the blockchain technology. And we get really excited about what's happening in Estonia. If anyone wants to go geek out on blockchain, check out what is happening in Estonia and how they're using individual digital identities, how people are kind of owning their own data. And all of that kind of stuff is just trying to...
I saw something, you can become a citizen of Estonia. Is that...
You can.
Right? Is
yeah, you can be an East citizen. Yeah. There's a really great article in The New Yorker about it if you have 45 minutes of your life. You want to sit down with a New Yorker article and read about what's happening over there. I think just trying to keep up with what digital behaviors are, and trying to make sense of that, make sure we're not falling behind. Digital identity, I think, will be part of that in the future. Our institution right now, we have every student gets a university ID where they log into all the systems. They can keep that as an alumnus. But when you leave the institution, you might be using Google to sign into more things. You forget about RID. So, is there a more universal identification key that we're going to have to think about? What would that unlock? Those kind of nerdy things are on our mind.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. And let me ask you this question. Where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at ashleybud.com. You cannot find me on Twitter these days. I'm taking a break from Twitter. So head over to my website, drop me a note, say hello. You can subscribe to my newsletter there. You can still find me on LinkedIn.
And that's it. So what are you waiting for? Start building a digital strategy and, become a citizen of Estonia. Why not? It's free. I thank you for your time. Big thanks to my guest, Ashley Budd. Enjoy some bump music. Thanks.